from Drums and Rums, where the backbeats meets the spirits, and we are still traveling here. In this episode, we are still in North Carolina there, and we've made it all the way out to the Outer Banks. And what I was told was basically this is the edge of the earth.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you are in the middle of nowhere, hanging out in the ocean.
Am I more east than if I was back home in Florida?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, so yeah, so as you know, if you look at a map and if you didn't pass geography, North Carolina sticks out about as much as Florida sticks down to the south, and so forth. So we are here at Outer Banks Distilling.
Outer Banks Distilling.
Yep, and I'm here with Tony Ursone.
Perfect.
I got it right.
You got it right?
I got it right, yeah. So yeah, no, thanks for inviting me up. Got a chance to tour the distillery earlier. We'll talk a little bit about that and talk about Kill Devil Rum, talk about Outer Banks Distilling, the history, getting people to, if they're not familiar with it, here's the opportunity to learn more about the products here, and really great operation. So, yeah, welcome to the podcast, Tony.
Thanks for having me. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
There you go. Wait, did I have a call-in number? Maybe.
No, actually, it was my third time. I think I called in once or twice.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's right, yes. We did have our happy hour on our Facebook show that we did there, which was a little challenging due to technical problems on my side with the computer that I was trying to use. But yeah,
working on the road is a tough operation.
Yeah. So definitely we've been in touch. We've been in contact for quite some time.
For sure.
And I got a chance to try some of them, and I think it's amazing stuff. And but here we want to learn more.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're out here in the Outer Banks.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know where that is, it's go to Ocracoke and north, and right along the peninsula here. If you look at our map, you can see right here we're on Roanoke Island in the center of the D there, right at the tip of the D. Usually a pretty good thing. That's where downtown Manio, Roanoke Island, and then that's the middle of the Outer Banks. We started in 2014.
Okay.
4 guys, 2 bartenders, and 2 brewers decided to make rum. There's a big history of rum in the Outer Banks. You have part of the unfortunate triangle trade and whatnot, but you had rum coming from the Caribbean coming on up the coast. You had to be within sight, and because of how far out the Outer Banks sits, because you're trying to sit there and go up the jet stream. And the jet stream ends off just south of the Outer Banks, and so that's the reason why we're pushed out. If it goes up and over, that's where we're sitting.
So pirate ships or whatever the ships back in
shipping lanes.
In the day, if you weren't careful, you were going to end up getting pushed into the.
You're either getting pushed into a reef or the shifting shoals. There's a lot of storms coming through.
Okay.
You're not getting much drift. Prevailing winds are going to shift.
Okay.
And so it's very treacherous up here. And because it was so desolate, when ships would wreck, they would just break apart, get hit by all these waves, and all the flotsam and jetsam would be on the
washed up on the beach.
And because there's some enterprising people out here, we get a little wild. And before the wreckers would come down from Virginia Beach area, they would. Some stuff would disappear, and the first things coming up was a sealed container, waterproof, full of rum. It would pop up first and land on the beach, and if it wasn't broken up, they would, locals would take it, drag it in, dig a hole in the side of this big hill, and they would hide it. And so the wreckers would come down and be like, "Oh, the rum was lost at sea," and whatever else we couldn't find. But the locals would be sitting there drinking their little tots from there, and it ended up becoming such local knowledge. It was called Big Kill Devil Hill, and Kill Devil being the original term for rum.
Right. So that's it's interesting how all this connectivity of the term Kill Devil in the Caribbean, using the Caribbean, to here many miles away is still referred to again, but the origins of how it all ended.
Oh yeah.
That was interesting. I've always known of, before I got into all this, I've always heard of Kill Devil, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a pretty unique name, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or those 3 words.
Strong
together.
enough to kill the devil.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, I've already heard of Kill Devil Hill, but then learn, it's like, oh, that's some really cool, history and how it all all circle of rum life.
Yeah, or the triangle of rum life.
So I guess the wreckers, are they wreckers for the shipping companies?
Yes, the insurance,
Okay.
the shipping company insurance would come down and they would sell off whatever property was there. It was written off as an insurance loss. They were trying to recoup some of their money.
Okay.
And so the insurance companies would pay out, and then they'd be like, okay, we've got, a couple barrels of tack, or we've got, whatever's come through.
What was on the ship.
Yeah, you have a manifest on what's on the ship, so they could say, like, oh, but this is what's left. And then they'd sell it at whatever cost they could get out of it, just kind of recoup some of that. And so there's a lot of history in the Outer Banks, especially with like shipwrecks being in the graveyard of the Atlantic. We've had shipwrecks we still have shipwrecks today. There was a ship that went down last year. It was a fishing vessel, and their engine went out, and then their other engine went out, and they started drifting on. And here it is in modern day with modern day engines and navigation and all that. Right. It got pushed up into a shoal, and next thing you know, it's wrecked. And so, I mean, even to 2020, 2021, we had the Ocean Pursuit in 2020 was a scallop boat. And you think scallop boats, they're out there for a long time until they get their max amount of scallops. And you might as well just drink paper straws. I'm all for environmentalism. I just think there's got to be a better way.
I don't know what got stuck in my nose, because it's like I'm about to have an aneurysm trying to suck or blow it. So anyway.
Well, you blow so then you can suck.
Okay then.
Yeah. Yeah. So we.
Is that a Spaceballs reference? She's gone from suck to blow.
She's gone from suck to.
Yeah.
Nobody gives me the raspberry. Surrounded by assholes. Reminds me when I used to work for Southern Glaciers.
There goes that sponsor.
Yeah, right?
So, yeah, I guess that, a lot of folks know, and again, because of the resurgence of all the Pirates of the Caribbean movies and ships and, the Royal Navy and the pirates and sailing all up and down from Britain to Caribbean, that there was that many shipwrecks here.
There's a bunch of them. I mean, we still find them. Scott, one of the owners here, he actually was walking on the beach this winter after a storm, and him and his dog found a shipwreck. And now they're actually calling it the Scott Smith site. It was a previously undisclosed shipwreck that just got exposed because the nor'easter came through, sucked out a bunch of sand.
Wow.
And now he has a shipwreck named after him.
Wow. So, speaking of the owners, right? Mm-hmm. So, 4 owners.
4 owners, yeah.
Right.
Adam and Kelly.
Okay.
And they were the brewers. Okay. They worked for Carl Strauss and Weeping Radish, a couple other bigger names. One's a Siebel Institute graduate. Okay. So, really into the fermentation science, like actual fermentation science, not just like following a little recipe and making, being a brewer, which I mean is a tough job. Production is a tough job, but coming up with recipes and understanding how that works.
Right.
And what we would try to do is we try to make a molasses-based rum. We like molasses-based rums. We like things that are unaltered, unadulterated. We want to stand up behind our product rather than, you can put it in a cocktail. Please enjoy it however you want. I mean, you can shoot it. You can put it into a cocktail. You can snort it. I don't care. You can dump it out and buy more. The sales guy in me is saying that. But we really try to stand behind our product. And so controlling fermentation allows us to do that without adding anything post-distillation, not having to rely on sugars and flavoring agents to really bring out flavor. Now, of course, we do have an altered product here, but that goes into a history that we can continue to talk about.
Yeah. So, starting back, I said 7 years?
7 years, yeah.
Okay, so 2014.
2015.
15-ish.
Yeah.
So the guys got together, decided this,
Yeah, so they were two were brewing at Outer Banks Brewing Station at the time. That was Kelly and Adam. And then you had Matt Newsom, who was a bartender up the beach and was also helping with the assistant brewing, and cleaning sweeping floors and learning the brewing process. And then Scott Smith was the bartender there. Okay. And, Scott went in the back one day and goes, hey, have you guys ever made rum before? And they kind of like look at each other, Kelly and Adam, and like, who you've been talking to. And they're like, what? And it's like, meet me. And they slid this piece of paper. Like 5 minutes later, Scott was up there bartending, and they slipped him a piece of paper that says, meet me here at 7 p.m. and we will discuss something. And he was like...
So he was just half joking about it.
He wasn't half joking. He loves the history of it. Okay. Yeah, the history of the Outer Banks and rum. And he was like, well, these guys, they brew, so we know that they can...
be able to do something.
They can do halfway, at least.
Right, yeah.
And so he goes back, and they meet up at a bar or a location. I can't remember where. Secret location at 7 p.m. And they're like, we're trying to open up a distillery. He's like, what do you know about it? And so Scott comes from the history of things. Okay. Matt Newsom comes from, the front of the house side of things. 2 guys front of the house, 2 guys back of the house. Plus, everybody has a passion for working. I mean, right. This is a liquor business, not a liquor charity. I mean, you have to be able to work.
Right.
And so those 4 guys got together, and we're downtown Manio. On Roanoke Island was the closest place that had a sewer system that we were allowed to be on. Kill Devil Hills was a private sewer system. You had to buy into it, and they didn't know what the viral load or the load of the dunder and stuff like that would affect this private sewer system. So we bought up this building. It used to be a ton of things. Depending on how old you are, will determine who. Like when you come in, you're like, I remember when this was the school office, and that was like, okay, you're probably like 40s. Oh, I remember I bought my prom tuxedo, my powder blue prom tuxedo. Okay, you're in your 60s because it was a department store, and it was school offices, department store. I think it was a car dealership maybe at one point. Oh, wow. I mean, it has a long history. Right. And they took all 4 of them. They started tearing up the place and. Saving. We've got original cypress beams. They said they were drinking a bottle one day in the back, and they were counting the amount of rings. I think they stopped at like 250 years.
Wow,
is how old the cypress, the beams and the joists in the floor were. So we reclaimed everything, pounded a hole in the side of the building, put in a door, poured 10 inches of concrete or 12 inches of concrete in the back here, and had a still brought in. So yeah, we got a 300-liter pot still into a 9-plate rectifying column.
Okay.
So Arnold Holstein. No, that's the actual distillery or the equipment name, not what we named it.
Oh, okay.
I don't even know what we named it.
I don't know. I thought yeah, it was definitely its size. It was like Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of reference.
That's a Holstein size, and then you got the heifer size and the. What other kind of cows we can come up with?
So yeah, again, again, as rum being made from many different places, and we were talking earlier. It just something that kind of came to mind about I think it would be a great thing to cover or topic, and hell, maybe even maybe it's more of a distillers roundtable idea about just the just kind of people appreciate how the nuances of how to make spirits, or we'll say rum, and how to all the other legalities and all the other things and all the other things that go with it, how to get into people's hands, from point A to point B. And we were just talking about that, right? We grabbed lunch at down by the marina and said, all right, so the fish just came right off the boat, went right into that fish market, and it's being sold right there. No one else's hands are touching it, and there's no exchange of whatever, and there's no middleman, etc. But spirits is a different thing. Yeah, legally, I mean, the federal government, when they passed the 21st Amendment, they said, okay, it's not illegal anymore. Right. But then the states go, well, some people go, okay, I'm wiping my hands of it. We're just going to collect taxes. And then some states go, no, we're going to hold off, or we're going to control it. Right. And then there still has to be a 3-tier system. So you have the producers, the distribution, and then the consumers. Right. Okay. So on the retail side. Right. So you have to distribute it, and you have to distribute it through some sort of distribution.
In the state of North Carolina, it's a control state, so the state distributes it. However, they don't. They contract out with the company who does it, and so they just collect the taxes and they control the sale of it. But they have a company that comes in and literally distributes it. Yeah.
So yeah, the challenge is to get your product to market, right? Especially in that sense. So the four guys started up and had brought different skill sets to the table, which was obviously it's great. Everyone has a little bit of a different nuance and to bring into it. And then 2015, 16. But then it takes time, right?
Yeah. So we started with a single product, which was our silver.
Right.
We can taste some if you'd like.
Sure. Okay.
We use grade A molasses. We get it from Port Allen, Louisiana. And what we do is we put it controlled fermentation from start to finish, about 8 days or so. 7 to 8 days is usually where it's running. We put it into the still, the 300 liter pot still, 9-plate rectifying column. Comes off about 180 proof, and then as you smell it, I mean, you can smell.
Yeah.
It's lighter. It's definitely got some more of the marshmallow kind of style, like cotton candy, but not sweet.
Right.
Like that.
Just enough.
Just enough. You get a little bit of ethanol bite, and you get a little bit of complexity off of a silver. The silver's, we wanted something you can put into a cocktail you can drink straight, and being a molasses based rum, it's going to have a nice definition of flavor there. Right. You get a little bit of the darker notes. Makes a hell of a daiquiri. That's pretty much how we defined it. We wanted to have a daiquiri rum,
right?
A rum that you can have well balanced. We didn't want to add sweetness to it. If you're going to make a cocktail, you can add your own sweetness to it. Right. We need something that's well balanced, a little bit more refined in flavor, so you could drink it by itself.
Right. 3 ingredients, folks. Remember, daiquiris. And again, you're definitely going to know what a rum tastes like, or the type, or flavor, or whatever from a well-made daiquiri.
Yeah,
right? We know we
we use a blender, right?
Yeah. No, it's broken. The blender's broken.
Sorry, bro.
Yeah, it's almost like McDonald's.
Yeah,
the blender's broken.
Blender's broken.
Ice cream machine.
Yeah. So that's our thing, and I mean think about daiquiri and daiquiri spec in general. Like you have your sugar, you have your citrus, and you have your spirit. There's nothing to hide behind in that,
right?
And that's where you really can taste the product. But if you take it by itself, of course, it's not. I mean, how many people shoot rum and drink a beer? It's not many,
right?
But you can, and you should be able to stomach the taste of the product.
But why would you?
I mean, I do. I mean, I like it because it's less sugar and I don't have to deal with the hangover. Yeah. I can drink more calories in rum, right. And then the sugar.
But I guess I maybe I live a sheltered life, but I guess what I mean is I would from my experience, you're shooting more other spirits than you are rum.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I don't shoot back anything anyways.
Yeah.
If somebody orders me a shot, I'll take like a mouthful, right. But I taste it. It's not for effect; it's for flavor.
Yeah, right.
Like I drink for flavor.
You're trying to enjoy the whole.
The effect is nice, right. But it's not. If I just wanted to, I could shoot up, ethanol or something and get twisted for nothing.
Well, it's kind of sorry. So that's my bad. So it's kind of like what we were doing here. We were just taking it easy.
Yeah, you take a couple sips, you swish it around your mouth. I mean, if you can't swish it around your mouth, then there's issue. And plus, when you get into the tasting of notes, if I know you're doing the Rummelier program,
right?
When you get into tasting notes, there's different parts of your palate that pick up different things. And I know that the high proof ones kind of tend to kick you up. I always hear it in your voice. You're like, ooh, but with it being a higher proof,
I must be a shitty poker player. I guess.
No, I think you're enjoying yourself, and if you're going to enjoy yourself, there'd be facial features, right. Or else your wife would get mad at you. Right?
That's right. The O face.
Yeah, you have to make sure that you're enjoying yourself. Nobody's going and taking a drink. If you are.
That face you just made there.
Yeah.
So you got to watch the video to see Tony's face that he just made was that's a face of if somebody's sipping it. That's a bourbon drinker who's being forced to drink rum who doesn't want to drink rum.
Yeah, right. But if true bourbon connoisseurs wanted to taste a product that is interesting, rum is so interesting with that. Like rum, tequila, you're tasting the terroir. You're tasting like what's going in, the product that's going in, not just a whiskey and barrel where the 80-20, where they're saying 80% of the barrel does the work. I mean, of course, in a barrel-aged program, you're going to have that, but you're still going to taste the raw ingredient as long as you're not adding anything post-distillation. You want to taste how dry was it? How sweet was it? What's happening in there? The types of cuts that you're making.
Right.
Because the different alcohols that come off in your heads, there's so much different flavor. I mean, we all know that if you take a sip of something and you're like, your mouth's burning, your eyes are watering, it's probably not as good. And ethanol will do that to a certain extent. Of course, you'll have that burn there, but with the different alcohols in solution, you're going to have different flavor profiles. If it smells like rubbing alcohol, okay, that might be more ethanols. But if it starts smelling like nail polish remover, that's your methanol. That's like those different alcohols that should be cut off.
Right.
And then you get into the tails with the bitterness and stuff like that. So with the silver rum, roll it around your tongue, see what the effects is. Is the alcohol burning you? Is it not? Even you tasted some earlier of 180 proof,
right? And
there was burn, but it wasn't like your mouth was on fire,
right?
Because it didn't have those methanol or something like that. You did something like that. If you breathe in, you breathe out, and the heat starts rising, and you start feeling it in your nose. Your eyes are watering. That tends to be a marker for heads. And then when you get towards the bitter side of things, you're getting into those those darker notes. Some are good, some are bad. Or in your tails, you start tasting these different things. And sure, in the definition of flavor, the esters and stuff like that, in an aged product where it can get mellowed out by the barrel, the charcoal, the wood actions, the wood sugars,
right?
Esterification. I think I'm saying that right. Sorry if I'm not I'm a professional, but I'm not that professional. You read it more than, and I know what it feels like, but I don't know how to speak it.
Right.
But all those things that, say, bourbon relies on. I mean, if you taste a young bourbon and they're like, oh, it's too young, and everybody's like, hey, I like my whatever, Buffalo Trace, and Buffalo Trace is the best bourbon out there, and it's like, no, that's an entry-level bourbon. And maybe if you can't get it in your state, then yeah, you might
think it's hard.
Yeah,
right.
But that goes into the marketing of things,
right?
So if you're saying, okay, is it good because it's rare, or is it rare because it's good?
True.
And so you get into the marketing, the business side of things. Sure, I mean, again, you have to make money and how you taste it. But if you truly want to experience something, rum is so good in definition of flavors and the location. I mean, if you go into our gold rum and you start tasting a little bit of like saltwater taffy almost, not that it's salty, but you start getting into these saltwater taffies because the salt in the air is coming.
Right.
You can see the ocean.
When I was out earlier, I was like, it's like I can smell it, right?
Yeah. As every coastal person knows, there's a range where salt is in the air. And all of your garden furniture is getting eaten up, and your car's rusting out.
I see a lot of plastic around here.
Yeah, yeah. You got to make sure, right?
So is the the light here, silver, the foundation for the other two? No, and yes.
So it's the foundation for our pecan. So starting out, having our silver product, great, and to be fair, we wouldn't be anywhere without our people that have purchased for us for years, and our fans and people that come in and buy, because I mean, you all have to start somewhere,
right?
You're not going in. And our first stuff was pretty rough, and people were like, "Oh, I like what you're doing," and spitting it out, or like you see their eyes watering and tearing up, and you're like, "Oh, they're proud of us," and you're like, "No, it's that bad."
Yeah.
And you get to that point, and then you go, okay. You learn and you improve and you work your techniques and you understand, hey, maybe this kind of went a little crazy.
Right.
Maybe the boiler was running hot that day, or maybe you're we're not a plug and play. We're not pressing a button and rum comes out. It's somebody turning a dial.
Right.
It's like driving a car. Like you can have a Tesla and press a button and go from A to B down the road, or you could be driving a manual. And ours is more manual than it is the Tesla.
Right. So there is. I mean, I'm not saying that this is the case, but but anyone who is a craft distributor,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I guess even because they're human, could have an off day.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something that happens or whatnot, and so yeah.
I mean, there's science, there's art,
Right,
I mean, and what works today might not work tomorrow because
Right.
of atmospheric differences, or the temperature's different, or the yeast strain that you're using. Maybe it's a more active yeast than that. Maybe one's a little bit more dormant.
Right.
Maybe because you have simple sugars in what we're doing, you don't have to cleave the sugars and do breaks from long chain sugars or short chain
Right.
sugars like they do in beer or in say whiskey. There's still some cleaving you can do, and if you really want to pitch, there's different things you can do to pitch and kind of intensify the amount of sugar that's able to be eaten by the yeast, or you can kind of like let the wash do it like that naturally. But you're going to have a different yield, and with those yields are also going to come, the esters, the flavors, the stuff that makes rum, like real rum, taste like rum.
Rum, right.
Yeah.
So the next one here.
Yes, the
Right.
pecan.
Right.
Pecan, pecan. How do you say it?
Now you've got me off.
As a Jersey boy going into Florida.
Pecan.
Pecan. Pecan do what?
Nothing.
Pecan. I do declare. Paul.
Right, pecan.
Yeah.
Right.
Pecan.
I get it now.
Cool. It's
Little
pecan,
stuff.
not pecanut. So, we didn't have an aged product. We're not going to open up our doors and day one and say, here's our 7-year rum. Try it.
Right.
Because we don't, more power to you. If you want to buy your rum and do that, then there's different business models.
Right.
And we don't hate on that. And there's room for all these different flavors. And, it's kind of like motorcycles. If you're on two wheels, does it matter if you're on a Harley or a Sportster or a sport bike or something like that? As long as you're on two wheels, same thing. We're in rum. There's plenty of room for
Right.
whatever you like, as long as you like it. This is I equate food and alcohol like sex. You have to have consent to do it, and everybody likes something different. So we like to joke around, say this idea hit us in the head. We have a couple pecan trees out back. Which I say pecan, but I also say pecan pie.
Maybe it's depending on how you're using it.
Yeah. So what we did is we wanted to highlight North Carolina agriculture. We try to stay as local as possible for everything we do. We wanted an American sugar production. We also use, and we'll get into that, Caribbean Fancy, a couple other different types for different products. But our main base is an American molasses. We wanted to highlight North Carolina specifically. And when we think North Carolina, pecan trees are everywhere. And we have some on the property. It was hit us in the head while we're outside, drinking a little rum. And so we were like, well, what if we do this? So we tried breaking up the shells and putting it in there. We tried, keeping them whole. What we found was we end up taking the whole, fruit of it or the nut,
Right.
and we take those, we have them shelled, and we soak it for what ends up being 7 to 10 days. We do it by flavor, not by, again, that's where the art is, right? Yeah, so maybe the sun got on those trees a little bit, or there's a little bit more bitterness coming out, or something like that. So we start tasting it and determine where our level of flavor. So the color will change because we don't do any type of caramelization or coloring agents. So we still try to be, upfront about everything. And so you smell it on the nose. You get a little bit of bitterness on there, really of the nut.
Right.
And then when you taste it, you're going to taste the tannins and the bitterness of a pecan, and then you're going to have a little bit of sweetness on the end with the honey. And so we get our pecans from. I just said it 3 different ways. We get our pecans from Mans Harbor, which is about 5 miles as the crow flies, and then we get our honey from Wanchese, which is where we had lunch earlier.
Okay. Yeah. So totally local stuff, right?
Yeah.
Support local.
Support local. I mean, you have to be about it. North Carolina's motto is "Esse quam videri," which is to be rather than to seem. And if you think about it, like, you could be seen as whatever but behind closed doors, if you're not about it, then you're not that.
Right.
And at the end of the day, like, morals cost money, and you have to be about who you are. And the way to do that is to actually do it, to exercise that.
So there's nothing else other than putting pecans.
Our silver rum, 100 pounds of shelled pecans. We put them inside dry hop bags, soak it there for 7 to 10 days, pull it out, and then add a little bit of honey. And when I say a little bit of honey, it is not super sweet, and the honey is very minuscule. I mean, low residual sugars. You're welcome, Scott. There's definitely, like, it is a little bit sweeter, but that's more for the balance of the nuts.
Right.
That darkness, that bitterness that you're going to have. As everybody who's ever had a raw pecan will tell you, it's definitely dry. I mean, and if you really want to dry something out, it's one thing, but then you can taste it with a little bit of the honey. Right.
Yeah, this was a really, amazing flavor and taste.
It's not what people expect. There's a few other pecan flavored things that are usually done with, like, flavoring agents and stuff like that, and which is, I mean, for them, highlighting that, it's a little bit tough because sometimes you get a little bit of sediment because the tannins the color will float to the bottom if it's sitting on the shelf for a while. So whenever I pick it up, I just shake it up. It's all natural. I mean, we filter it out, but we don't do any type of chill filtering or anything like that because we want you to have the flavor and the taste.
Natural, as close to, right, yeah.
And then we pull them out and candy them. So that's something you haven't had before. This is your first time trying this.
So what, this is a candy
rum soaked pecan.
I may have to take some home.
Yeah, the flavor is crazy, and it's not something you can recreate. I mean, I'm sure some flavor scientists can go out there and spray something on there. But I mean, that was we first gave them to pig farmers. Pig farmer came by and would take the pecans and fed his pigs, and then they got drunk.
The pigs are all in AA now.
they're somewhere. But yeah, so then we're like, oh, what can we do? Oh, it's another product that we can produce, and again, it's the liquor business.
Yeah,
you have to make money where you can, and without charging a premium for a non-premium, or you have to find your little bit of way,
right? Your
wiggle room.
Yeah.
We started candying them, and it's been a different revenue stream, and between that and having T-shirts and having all the tourists that come through, the locals,
right?
The people that have supported us from day one, the new people that come in through the doors at any moment.
So now where we're at, again, if you're not familiar, as Tony had mentioned, the location, but it is between here and then even for someone like myself in Florida, where we have a lot of barrier islands and bridges and things like that, this is really a unique. Where we went over a couple bridges. A couple long span bridges, and we're not even really on the beach yet.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're an island in the middle of a sound.
Right, and so you get a lot of folks that come through, obviously further out over in the beachside area, that come through to the tours and all of that. So how did that eventually evolve? Obviously distillery first, right?
Yeah. I mean, we're a distillery, and we really want to make a premium product.
Right.
We went to school for it. Everybody took their classes. Arnold Holstein put on one. You got Moonshine U. You got a couple different places to learn how to distill, and then hands-on experience. Over the 7 years of selling a product, and you learn how to get better in process improvement. Things change. You start selling more, which is beautiful. And when you can sell more, it's always great. And so you have to start producing more.
Right.
So we started with 4 guys. We're up to 13 people now.
Okay.
We've been able. When we first started, we weren't even allowed to sell any bottles here. You had to go to the ABC store to buy a bottle, and they allowed us to sample people, and then it was 1 bottle per person per year. Had to take a license. I know Eric said it yesterday. You know, I mean, you had to scan a license. You had to keep that on file for the year. And somebody's like, oh, well, what about my son? It's like, well, he's not 21. Yeah, but I am. It's like, well, you can't do it.
Right.
And you did that, and then it was like 5 bottles per person per year, and then it was wide open, and you were allowed to have a bar. And we're like, oh, great. But our business model didn't have that because we didn't. Yeah,
what you did set out for.
Yeah, so you had like a tasting room, which a tasting bar is a lot different than a bar.
Right.
You know, tasting bar, if you can fit 30 people in there standing shoulder to shoulder with a small plastic cup and sipping it, it's different than if you have a cocktail or anything like that. But, you know, good people comes good people. I mean, we were able to pick up a beverage director, came from the beach. He was a young enterprising bartender on his way up. As these guys were getting out of the business, he was in the business. A few years younger, really had a passion to produce, quality drinks, and he's constantly evolving. I know we have a couple of these drinks in front of us, and you've had one earlier.
Right.
I mean, he'll do anything from a rum and coke, like a frozen rum and coke, which you're drinking, and put a little bit of Angostura in there, and you freeze it, and maybe a little bit different, on the nose, but a little bit off. And then he has stuff like seaweed infused coconut water in the cocktail, and so we were able to elevate. I mean, the Outer Banks kind of cocktail scene is very 1990s. You're getting a lot of sugar. You're getting sugar bombs, and you're probably doing, as much consume as much as you can. It's your vacation. You want to do your...
Yeah, you're doing it up in the week you're here. And
yeah. It's like, oh, I just want a rum and coke or a Long Island iced tea or 15 different shooters.
Yeah.
And that's great, time and place, right? When you're at the beach, what do you expect?
Right.
Do you want to sit down and drink an old fashioned on the beach?
Yeah. Maybe.
I mean, I do, but do most people? Nah, probably not.
It's and again, it goes back to marketing and the mindset of what vacation means, especially when you're on a beach. Most of the time, and a lot of people I've talked to is there's always been I decided I wanted to start a rum company while sitting on a beach and sitting on, again.
I mean, yeah, the islands. You're in the islands, and you're like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah.
And then you get home, and you're like, oh, it's actually work.
I like the drinking part.
Yeah, the drinking part is great.
Yeah.
I mean, so as you're doing whatever, knowing that it's a business, like I know a lot of people that are like, oh, I finally got my nest egg saved up, and I've always wanted to have that classic car, or I always wanted to open up my own distillery. Right. And then you have this possession, then you realize you have to maintain it, and you have to nourish it. And because it's a business and a fledgling business, it's hard out there. Yeah. And if you can even produce a good enough product to sell, because your friends are going to run out of money at some point. Your mom might love you, but she might not love you that much. Right. And so you produce and you start doing that, and then you can. There's marketing involved. There's sales involved. I mean, that's where I come in. I used to work for a distributor, and I was selling these guys, and I saw what they were doing, and they were like, "Man, I wish I can hire you. Man, I wish I can hire you." And I was like, "Well, then, fucking make me an offer, then. Like, bring me on, please. Get me out of this." And understanding from all these different products I used to sell before that I can, the product can get better, but people tend to get. Don't tend to get better. They tend to get the same or worse, right? And with good people means that there's something you can invest in. You can be there for the ride. And, I mean, with product improving, the different type of packaging on the outside. I mean, you can put a beer inside of a brown paper bag and you drink it and you might just taste it for the flavor or not. But are you going to buy the brown paper bag, beer back there or the bottle like we were saying?
Right.
Like packaging matters.
Yeah, we were talking a lot about that earlier, where it's off it's got to pop off the shelf, right? It's as much as you probably somebody could probably have the best. Well, it's very subjective anyway. For sure. But let's just go play with it. Could have the very best rum in the world that everyone likes, but one is if nobody knows about it, nobody, whether it's in the store, which is hard, which is let alone that's a hard thing, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, just to get it in the door.
Right. Talking to a lot of the craft, all the guests have come on. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of pounding the pavement, going to the tastings, going to the liquor store, setting up some,
on-premise accounts, off-premise accounts,
right. And it's great.
Festivals,
and it's great there. Like you have your tasting rooms, the gift shop, the bar, the tours, to be able to offer a little bit more, right?
For sure. And we feel like we're ambassadors of our product. I mean, you should be, because a lot of people. You find a lot of people go, oh, I had a bad experience with rum in college,
Right.
I was drinking Admiral Nelson's and I woke up and my head hurt. And, and I mean, I drank my fair share of Admiral Nelson's or, whatever else. And you wake up with a headache and, you're whatever. But then you're like, well, have you tasted a product? Have you tasted, yeah, sure, you drink vodka tequila one time. And have you had a higher mark tequila? Have you had one that was made artisanally, it was made real and not through a diffuser, but through actual fermentation.
Right.
Actual like Tahona Stone go through. Same thing. I mean, you had the mezcal last night at the house. Yeah. That is sublime. I mean, you can't get any more of that because there was 234 bottles made, but it was an expression of this one moment. It's like taking a picture of a beautiful sunset. The sunset continues on, but that picture is forever, right?
Right.
But only for that moment.
And that's, it goes, right, like I said, it go back to that craft is, I know I'm going to jump ahead here. We're going to go back because I know there's one more we can talk about here in front of us. But the special releases you do.
Oh, yeah.
Right, so that's very much it does change and right.
Yeah, so we do a couple different expressions. We do a winter soul spice, which you had a little bit of that last night. That's an all-natural spiced rum that we do with, toasted coconut, raw coconut, cacao, toasted almonds, slivered almonds, a few spices, and we use that and we soak it in there, and that's where you get the color and the flavor from. But then again, it's a decaying product at some point. You're going to lose flavors on doing infusions and stuff like that, so that's a limited expression. And then we do what's called the Shipwreck series, because we're in the graveyard of the Atlantic. You can see we have plenty of shipwrecks. As the Kohler, we've actually done one from that. Okay. And what it is a different aging process and a different fermentable. So keeping in tradition of what we like, we keep molasses as part of the base, and then we add in a different type of fermentable. So it might be turbinado sugar or demerara or all these different types, cane juice, and then age it in a different process. So with our gold rum here, we age from A. Smith Bowman barrels, specifically the John J. Bowman series. We have a good working relationship with them. We're actually we got a couple of their barrels we paid for years ago when we were first starting, and we were saying, man, this is a barrel we really like, and we were talking about it on a tour. They're like, what barrels do you use? And they're like, oh, well, we really like these A. Smith Bowman barrels. It was the best ones we had. And the guy's like, oh, yeah, at the end of the tour, he goes, shakes his hand. He's like, I'm the operations manager for A. Smith Bowman. And he's like, you can get as many barrels as you want. And they pick them for us. They make sure we have good quality. I mean, we still pay for it. I mean,
right, yeah. But
that relationship is kind of like what you do in the rum world, is bringing all these different people, and drums as well. Right, I mean, I don't want to discredit half your podcast. But yeah, I mean, as far as it goes, it's community. It is people sharing and people making products and sharing products, and a rising tide raises all ships.
Right.
You don't have to be a crab in a pot. You don't have to pull each other down, and breaking me down is not going to get you anywhere. And if it does, then those are the type of people that you don't want around you anyway.
Right. And we know, and we talk a lot about it, is, rum is fun, and any rum, there's no bad rum. It's just,
it's flavor and what you want.
Right. And that's the great thing about rum is it's very much a wild, expansive, from certain things. And I think that part of the that community is, or even it's great that even other craft distillers aren't self-conscious enough, maybe some, but
people for
right,
sure,
right, yeah, is, look, at the end of the day, yes, everyone's in a business.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to that. Let's start there, right? Everybody got into distilling, and for love and so forth. But why did you continue, right? Because you love what you do, and you are making money from it. Okay, so again, it is a business. Let's be honest.
For sure, yeah.
Unless if it wasn't, you would be somebody up up further west of here.
Yeah, it'd be a little bit cheap,
right?
Or it'd be a little bit cheaper, right? Yeah.
But again, if you're very proud, of your product,
mm-hmm.
and you're okay in standing up, or vice versa, because again, you might make one type of rum product.
Yeah.
I might make a different take on it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I love all sorts of different flavors, and you have your preferences, of course.
Right.
I have my preferences, but I can still appreciate other people's stuff, hopefully, as long as they're about it. If it's just a money-making scheme, and you're like, okay, cool, I just did this to make money, or like we were talking about earlier, maybe you want to make a bourbon, and it takes, your 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years to make a really good bourbon in barrel, then you're just like, oh, I'm just going to make some rum, kind of an afterthought. That's probably not the best rum.
Right.
And it's probably, and would you stand behind it? Or like, just because it's made from sugar doesn't make it a rum. I feel like
we have a rum. That's about it, right?
Yeah, like, we'll just throw that back there just to make a little bit of money.
Yes.
Which is fine. We made a silver rum. Some people don't have a passion for silver rum, but you have to make money somehow to get to that aged rum because you have to put it into barrel. But if you do it if you have any pride in what you do and you truly enjoy life, like, why not make a better product, and why not try to be better at your craft? I mean, that's truly what craft is. It's not just putting in a formula and calling it out the door.
Right. You
don't order it and go. And I'm not saying like ordering rums like people do.
Right.
I'm just saying like you don't just like press a button and here comes a rum and there it is.
Right. It's not like the Jetsons where it's all.
I mean, there's things about blending. I mean, blending is an art that is very difficult. And I mean, if you look at a Joe Patrice with barrel spirits, he does barrel bourbon, barrel whiskeys, and stuff like that. He goes and says right up front, he goes, "I'm not a master distiller." People are like, "Oh, master distiller," and he's like, "I don't touch a still." He's like, "I blend," and he's a master blender. He's won Spirit of the Year. I mean, he's got all these different awards, and his blending techniques or his blending flavor profile is amazing.
A lot of people don't know there's a differentiation between the two.
Oh yeah,
and some may be both.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Right, but yeah,
and people are always like on the lookout. If you look at a bottle, I mean, I know it's marketing, and they're like master distiller, master blender, and they say like, "Oh, this guy," and it's like you just opened.
Right.
Who made you the master? And, how do you consider that? Like, what kind of? I mean, have you furthered the craft? I mean, can you call yourself doctor as soon as you go to school?
Right. Yeah. Just because you went to school for 8 years at college doesn't mean you become a doctor.
Yeah, I mean, I went to school for at least 6 in community college. On and off, yeah.
And there's some people that are, that I've talked to who are very conscious about accepting that title from somebody because they they don't maybe some of it is self-deprecation or some but
modesty for sure.
Yeah, modesty. Yeah.
I mean, you can. I mean, truly, people will tell you who you are by your actions, by your words, things how it is. You might think that you're something, but if you don't live that life, then you aren't that.
Right.
You might think I'm Joe Schmo walking down the street. I'm the biggest, baddest guy on the block. But somebody comes over and punches you and you crumple it down. I mean, there's proof right there.
Right.
And this business definitely filled with egos and personalities and just like there is anything else. I mean, you're going to have your celebrities. You're going to have your people that... And some people are... And some of these are well-earned. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, the alcohol industry is a bit eccentric. We're not the traditional 9 to 5. I think my mom cried when I took this job. She's like, no, what about health insurance and all that? I'm like, Mom, this is a passion,
Right. So it's interesting. Again, look, I think that's why it's probably like the craft brewing industry for beer, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a little bit. I mean, it's the same thing here. There's a community, right? And everyone takes a different take on it. And yeah, look, at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
all of these, unless there's some proprietary thing that you created,
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, all these same ingredients are available
Yeah.
to everybody.
I mean, how much music can you make with 3 chords?
Right.
You know, I mean, like, it's all, I mean, everybody's got a kit, and if you're playing drums, and you've got a hi-hat, and you've got a snare, and you've got yourself a bass drum, you can play different tempos, you can play all, but it's the same ingredients.
Right, yeah.
You know, you're still hitting a bass drum, you're still hitting it, and how are you hitting it, and what's your, you know, how are you going with it, what type of flair, how are you holding it, you know, and all these differences makes the music.
Right. The arrangement of all the parts that go into it.
For sure.
Really makes it. Yeah, maybe that's a good analogy there about the music part. So,
Thank you. You can pay me later.
Sure. We'll talk to my agent.
Yeah.
So, all right. So the last one here, right,
is our gold rum.
Okay.
This is a product that will be going away at some point. We produced at the time that we produced it, or we still produce. Well, we stopped producing it. We stopped putting it into barrel. But the flavor profile that we wanted, with the skills that we had and the ingredients that we had, we wanted to make an aged rum. And in this aged rum, this is it started out as a year product. When we first laid it out, it was bland and a little thin. But you know, you have to make money to be able to put more in a barrel, and it takes years and years to come up. And we found that this is a good product. This is something we stand behind. But it's also not it fits in this kind of niche of, it's not a 5-year or 7-year product. It's a gold rum aged. This one's aged for over 18 months. Of course, get into blending. You're going to have different things mature at different times. And we found after that 18-month mark, or around that 18-month mark, we had a flavor profile that was what we wanted at the time. Now, with our experience of doing like things like the Shipwreck series and learning these different sugars and different recipes and different ways of doing it, and it gets that knowledge, we're like, we want to produce something that's a little bit different than this, that will go in the future. Now, obviously, we're still producing, we're still selling it, we still have barrels of it, and it's good. And if you taste it, it has, you know, buttery, oaky notes. It's got a nice saltwater, almost banana taffy, but not on the sweet side, more of like a mouthfeel saltiness. And you have the barrel notes. You have those, you know, you have the vanilla, the vanillin. So the reason why white oak is so popular, besides the fact that it's strong wood, it has a high concentration of vanillin, which is the chemical compound of vanilla. And so if you have imitation vanilla, it tends to be made from oak. And so you just have a high concentration. Vanilla bean just has a high concentration of vanillin. And as that goes, so you get these vanilla notes, you get these storm systems that come through, and so it gets really hot. And I mean, you see right now, you probably see sweat on our faces, and we're in the air-conditioned room. It gets hot in here, and in the winter it gets really cold, and you have that barrel interaction, but you also have these storm system, high-pressure, low-pressure systems that really sucks it in. You get a lot of action on those barrels, hence about 18 months. We say about 5 to 6 seasons, because you really want to be able to get that full cycle plus.
So it's a full consistency of of up and down,
and being able to blend through to keep a consistent product where batches, and I mean the flavor of our pecan tries to stay the same, the colors, the variance, and we allow that variance to sacrifice to the flavor. And because even though it would look better if we filtered it out and put in caramel, we wanted to make that product, but it was by flavor, by blending. And by producing from taste. Same with our gold, as we blend it together. That golden color comes from the barrel. It's not anything added post distillation. All that flavor comes from the barrel, and you get all those notes based off of that.
So how many years, or how long is this in the barrel?
At minimum of 18 months.
Okay.
Some more than others. When it first came out, it was about a year product. We don't have an age statement on it because it's about flavor.
Right.
but yeah, so it was about 18 months. It is what it is, but it goes back to the business side of things. The marketing side is, can you the price that we have to sell this for to make a profit? Does that make sense? Not just, I mean, sure, we made it. I can stand behind this product. I love the fact that it's gold rum. I like drinking it. I would sit there and do that. But does it make sense on the sales side of things? And you realize that, you know, if you want to improve your game, you have to produce more and better.
Right.
And some products are not viable.
Right. Yeah. And If any company that is a distiller who's only been around for a few years and is selling a product that's aged longer than been around, you should kind of put up the old spidey sense and say,
and find out who produces it. I mean, there's plenty.
And maybe there might be a reason. Or
I mean,
hopefully they're upfront and very transparent.
You think about. I mean, especially in the rum world, it's prevalent and for a good reason. There's great products out there. You know, when you get some Foresight stuff, you can get like Holmes Key. You know, you get into stuff like that, and there's great products out there with like that might not fit in the like. If you look into the whiskey producers, you have Wild Turkey, and Wild Turkey, you know what Wild Turkey tastes like. Everybody, your mouth's watering right now. If you're listening to this, your mouth's watering because you've tasted Wild Turkey and you know exactly what it tastes like. Or say Jack Daniels. You know what that product tastes like, and produce that flavor profile. Every barrel that comes out of that rick house doesn't taste like that. That's a blending process, and there's going to be outliers. And in these outliers, they sell those products to other people to produce their whiskey. So because it doesn't taste like Wild Turkey, it's still a quality product. They're still putting quality in, quality out.
Right.
But it's not the flavor. It's not McDonald's. You know, it's not
the right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, especially in the rum world, with the variance of you think about hotter temperatures. You tend to think warmer temperatures for the production of rum.
Right.
You're going to have different aging. Maybe that barrel has more end pieces or the edge pieces of the wood, or maybe maybe there was a cold draft in that one particular spot where it was sitting. Just because the barrels are sitting next to each other, it can taste vastly different. I mean, that goes into the craft of things again, and to be able to produce something quality and consistent and have that flavor to be that. It has to make sense and it has to fit that profile. Now, if you can take that and sell it to somebody else and make money off of it, then sure. And if somebody goes, "Hey, I really want that funky. I want that really super funky one that say like a Jamaican rum flavor profile, but it's coming from Barbados. Mm-hmm. You know, a Bajan rum that tastes like Jamaican, like with a high ester content, so like that. It doesn't necessarily taste like Bajan rum. Maybe you won't sell it as that. Maybe somebody can be like, I want this flavor profile for theirs.
Right.
And it's like, this is the outlier. This is my honey barrel. And I can market it and sell it.
Yeah, because like we were talking earlier, was there's such a, like I said, that wide range of rum is Ian Burrell had said, I think he said it on the podcast he was on. Rum is what you make of it. Because every island makes their rum. It's very distinct. You go from island to island.
For sure. Different yeast strains, different ways of production.
Right.
I mean, you go to agricoles, and the reason why it is because it's right there.
Right.
And when you're pressing that cane juice and it starts fermenting, if I try to make an agricole up here, it would be fermenting on the way over here.
Right.
It would start fermenting and probably blow up on 95 somewhere. Or on Alligator River going across the bridge gets stopped from the drawbridge.
We can't get over to
you can't get there from here
because the truck blew up with
This is fermentation. I mean, fermentation's wild.
So so what do you got coming up, or what you can share with some of the private stuff? And the private stuff's only available here.
Yeah, so sort of. It's available in North Carolina, depending what it is. So let's go back. We have our silver, our pecan, our gold. We have the spiced rum in the winter, which is we'll do that probably forever. It's really good Christmas around Christmas time. I mean, it's one of those things that people enjoy. We used to have a summer spice rum, but it was kind of mediocre. You know, it was mid, as the kids would say. And you know, it was good for what it was. But again, is it viable? And in the height of the season, do you really want to be messing with production schedule, or do you want to be able to produce enough to sell?
Right.
So we have 2 shipwreck series a year. We do a spring release and a fall release. They're named after a specific shipwreck that happened in the Outer Banks. We will determine what it is based off of something. Maybe the wind blew that day, or maybe, you know, you were walking down the beach and found one, or maybe it ship, like when we were bottling one day, or we were taking it out of the barrel, and there's a shipwreck that just happened on the beach. I guess we're going to name it after that. But we really wanted to highlight the history of the Outer Banks and the history the living history. I mean, history is today,
right?
You know, I mean, people forget that like all history isn't years and years ago.
Right.
You make history every day.
Right. And the shipwrecks aren't necessarily just pirate ships. It's not necessarily just ships.
No, I mean, majority aren't.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean,
pirates were a very specific time frame. Well, I mean, there's still pirates today.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, the pirates, a classic pirate R that you're thinking of. What's a pirate's favorite letter? Come on. Just answer it, please.
No, I don't want to say that.
Please.
Come on. Are you going to make me really
It's my favorite open. I give speeches all the time and I say, what's a pirate's favorite letter?
It's between Q and S.
You would think so, but 'tis the sea.
Oh, damn. If I had my mixer board with me, you would have definitely got the
Oh, for sure. Rim shot.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I once said that joke to a 100-person dinner, and nobody laughed except for one guy in the background. And I think about it to this day is he just goes ha 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 ha, and he made my night. And it's because I don't have to be funny as long as I'm funny to me. I'm good for that.
They go over here all weekend. So tipping waitresses.
Yeah, try the fish. Bing. But no, I mean, pirates. Sure, there's a history, and you know, and naval warfare. I mean, the British Navy. I mean, pussers, right? The pussers came from the purser, the guy who gave up, you know, your allotment, your tot of rum. And then, of course, you know, you think of daiquiris, and you think of grog, you think of like limes for scurvy, and scurvy wasn't this like, oh, I got gum disease. It was a debilitating disease that killed, I think, like 40% of sailors at one point in time. So
drink more daiquiris.
Drink more daiquiris
to prevent scurvy.
Try the fish.
That's your Dr. Paul.
But yeah, so I mean, yeah, there's a lot of history, and there's history of that here. I mean, we had a product called the Blackbeard's Reserve at one point. It was for the 300th anniversary of Edward Teach's death. There was a pirate festival that happens here every year, and we were there, and it was the 300th anniversary of his death. We went out to where it was, and we had a product for it. It was a 2-year aged rum that we made in conjunction with the Tourism Bureau of North Carolina to really highlight that history. Sure, there's history of that, but there's U-boats that were sunk out here. I mean, people forget that German U-boats were off the coast here, sinking ships. You have, you know, merchant trade ships. I mean, the trade has been ships. I mean, think about today, the shortages that you have. Shipping is still a huge way of things getting around. I mean, ships today, they're bigger and they're beefier and they can carry more stuff, but you're still relying on ships. And today, and back then, with the advent of the sail power and, you know, wooden ships, there's going to be a lot more variance in how it was, how they were able to get around.
Yeah, and it's I think that's a really good point. Is it's more than just, you know, there's a lot of, again, you hear the stories all the time, and then especially, I mean, I know it was kind of I didn't because I don't know a lot about the pirate lore or the history. I know Blackbeard is
for sure,
you know, but like, you know, here, of course, an area is going to embrace something
for sure.
You know, tourism, you know, again, tourism is a big thing or whatnot. But hell, I'm sure that if somebody was going to open up some sort of distillery out in Roswell, New Mexico, it would be alien themed, okay?
I'm sure somebody has.
Right. So,
Yeah.
I mean, so of course it's about business, it's about the marketing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, hopefully,
Or history. I mean, real history is real history.
Right,
I mean, if you're gonna be out in, I mean, think about Cooperstown Distillery, who they have the baseball theme,
right.
And maybe that's all not baseball, but they have to at least acknowledge what's next door,
Right.
You know.
Yeah, so you're gonna have a little nod to it or whatever.
Yeah.
So the ships here. So a couple things.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about. You guys talked a little bit about it earlier. Was the partnership or relationship you have with East Carolina University here, and you have some of the partners.
So we're locals. I mean, as local as you can be, right? Like Kelly grew up here. His family's been here for generations. Scott, we used to come down here. I mean, he grew up in the Tidewater region of Virginia, an hour and a half away. But he's lived down here. He was a bartender for 20 years there. So, yeah, I mean, we want to give back to our communities. We were members of this community. You give back. So we do things called the Angel Share, which is another rum that we release with Red Ribbon Cane that was produced. It used to be production up here in North Carolina. The yields, it's a low-yield product. So a lot of people don't tend to use it. It's very flavorful. You got to try some earlier.
I've never tasted anything like that, and that's supposed to be sugar, right?
It's a molasses of Red Ribbon Cane. This very, flavorful difference of taste. But yeah, so we do things like giving back to the community. I know Eric was saying about giving his hand sanitizer to first responders.
Right.
We did that as well. You set up as a community during the height of the pandemic of the lockdown and everything. We didn't try to make money off of it. We were part of the community. We just gave it to the people that needed it, and we did it to the ferry workers and to the to the police and first responders and anybody who came by that needed some. We gave them whatever we could produce, the hospital, whatever.
Right.
Because that's what neighbors do. That's what community does.
Right.
We take care of ourselves not because you're going to take care of me, but because I have the ability, I should be able to.
Right. You have a God-given ability to do something or skills or whatnot, and
why wouldn't
to look out your fellow right. And there was a lot of great things early on during the pandemic that you were like, maybe there's some sense of again,
humanity.
We see that a lot during hurricanes happen. Is neighbors never talk to each other, but once you're out of power, you're going to come out and. Because you got nothing else to do, and start talking to your neighbors, or hey, I'll run an extension cord or whatever. Right?
Well, you think about it. I mean, we really, as Americans, in a non-rural setting, you have access to services and goods that are beyond the pale. I mean, you have fresh water, you have some food, hopefully, you have clothing. Your basic needs are met. So therefore. When that's threatened, it's new. And I mean, if you go into different smaller communities, and especially rural, like super rural communities, or you say in different countries that like the islands, where they have to produce everything that they produce, or else they're relying on shipping. And if a storm comes, then you're not getting that necessarily. And it's a lot of community based off of that. It's a lot of us for us.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, I think that's great, especially since part of the community here with the shipwrecks, you tying in obviously with your special releases, supporting the local university here and their studies, and it's a harmonious cycle of everybody, and not saying everybody watches each other. I don't mean it that way, but I mean you
fit into where you fit,
right?
And if you go into your local area, I mean, if you move into a spot and you piss off all your neighbors, then maybe they won't want you around.
Right, yeah. If you happen to be running a business and it's not, and you're being, let's say a business that's not going to maybe catch normal attention for being questionable,
for sure,
legally questionable. You get your neighbors next to you. If you're a jerk to them and so forth, or you're pissing the community off. You're not going to stay very long because you're going to have a lot of people going to the town councils, etc.
For sure, especially with something as like alcohol. I mean, alcohol's the devil. They say In North Carolina, wine is what is it? Beer is food, wine is sacrament, liquor is the devil, and then that's how they produce. That's how they separate everything about. You can buy beer and wine at a grocery store, a gas station, but liquor's the devil, and it's closed on Sundays because that's the Lord's Day, and you have to control how much alcohol gets out there because you might go crazy. You might start. You can drink as much beer as you want, but you drink one shot of liquor and you're going to go stab somebody.
Yeah, such a
control it.
Yeah, well, yeah, it goes back to the we were just talking about the toning down the rum in the barrels in the ships in the Royal Navy, right? It's old grog, cutting that rum down.
The ration.
Yeah, that's right. So, all right, so well, apparently yes, you do listen, so you know what's coming. Secret. So I think you know at least the first one, but all right, so here we go. So in 4 beats or less. So here's our rapid fire. So in 4 beats or less, like I said, you know this one. Neat or on ice?
Neat.
Okay.
Instant neat.
Okay. All right. Now I know we talked a little bit about some music style, so I'll switch it up a little bit here.
Okay.
In 4 beats or less. I'm sorry. Well, shoot. Let me back up here. Beats.
I know beats.
Yeah. Wait, we're sips.
Yeah, we're sips.
Yes. Sorry. So in 4 sips, right? So we won't do the first one again, but in 4 sips or less. Who's your favorite punk band? See, that's what I'm gonna.
Lars Fredriksson and the Bastards.
Okay, I will have to. I will have to. We will. You need to have me listen to him
for sure.
Okay, so educate me on that. So,
that was a tough one.
But you did spit it out pretty quick.
I mean, 4 beats or less.
I'm glad you didn't go with something that was like more obvious to the mainstream people and so forth. So, which you probably would really despise on some of those bands.
As long as it's not AFI.
All right. So in 4 beats or less, 4 sips or less. I've already been drinking a little bit. So in 4 sips or less, what is something that you took from your previous job before joining this group that is something that was a skill, knowledge that you're able to apply to here?
Okay. So when I worked for Southern Glaziers, before the Evil Empire, I had 50 suppliers at one point. I was the artisanal craft and estate spirits representative, and we had 50 suppliers and 300 products, and we had to sell all of them. And finding how to sell somebody something that they might not necessarily know that they want. Like, how do you get the dive bar to pick up Campari? Or how does a liquor, like a fancy cocktail bar, bring in Jägermeister and make that relevant? Right. And so understanding how you can fulfill somebody's needs and solve a problem before they even know it's a problem, then you're more likely to be able to be an asset rather than a liability. It's not, hey, I produce rum, so you should drink my rum, because, that ego will get you only so far. But if I go, hey, you have, your Bacardi in your well, I can't beat the price of Bacardi, they can produce a lot more than I can. But if you say there's 12 drinks per bottle, on average, plus spill and everything else, and I say, okay, Bacardi is $7 cheaper than me, but you charge $1 more per of my pour, $1 more per pour, you can upsell people to mine, and you can actually make more money off of my bottle than you can with Bacardi. And so you're solving a problem before they even know. They're like, you're answering their no before they even said no.
Right.
And I think that having that flexibility and do it morally and do it through through actual, like, you're not creating a problem. I'm not kicking you in the shin and being like, did you see that guy kick you in the shin? You should buy my shin guards. But like, answer those questions there. Right. I think that really helped.
So that's great. That's great, because it's like one of those. Look, they're in business, you're in business, but how do you present it in such a way that it's like I'm helping you.
Yeah.
And this makes sense.
And I'm not tearing down Bacardi. I mean,
right.
I think that you are going to have your mainstream.
Is it?
You know, Captain Morgan's going to be Captain Morgan's, and people are going to do Captain Coke, like Jack and Coke.
Right.
But if you're trying to sell Jim Beam to a Jack and Coke thing, you say, okay, but what happens if you want something a little bit different?
Right.
You want to change it up.
And I also think, Tony, too, is it's as you said, you've been on both sides of this. It's tough because some of those specialty cocktails that some places have, they are very locked in with some of the particular brands because of marketing and so forth. So you're right.
Sure,
I would
pay
say
to play is still in effect.
If you walk up and sit down in the bar and you might be at wherever it may be, okay, what do you want? Have a rum and Coke, and probably in the well is hopefully at least Bacardi, and that's something lower than that. But they're going to probably say Bacardi because most people may not.
Sure,
they're not rum enthusiasts.
Yeah,
but
it's the Kleenex problem.
It's the specialty stuff that they put on that little cocktail card on the bar. Mm-hmm. That you're right, but again, it's some of the specialties ones is still that same product. So I get that they're trying to push volume through from their distributors are pushing the larger
for
product.
Sure.
But I think that's an interesting point. It's like restaurants to try to give that opportunity. Say, hey,
there's money to be made, and there's
and
you can elevate your customer. You don't have to be stuck in a rut and just get whatever it is and that's being a passive business owner.
Right.
You can actively teach your people. You can teach them, like when people come through and do a tour, we talk about rum as a whole. We're not just talking about us, because if they're if they are introduced to rum and can have an understanding of it, they're more likely to try other rums, and they're more likely to be excited about rum in general, and enthusiast, and purchase more.
And I think that's why places that do have, either if they don't have it in property, on property, tasting room, or the bar. Mm-hmm. I think it's
bar's important.
Because then you got a person who can make you the drinks, and then also, too, is also help with sales, right? I mean, you're very knowledgeable in other aspects, so you can talk about different drinks. But to be able to say, hey, here's our cocktail program too to go with these products, right?
Oh, so, sure.
You walk in and say,
I mean, if you could buy a cheeseburger at a butcher shop, it'd probably be the best cheeseburger you ever had, and it would behoove them to do that, because then they're going to sell more beef,
right?
And sure, I mean, that's business for you. It's like, and then maybe if you go home and you can't make that same cheeseburger because you didn't spice it the right way, or you didn't, you're not making that drink exactly how it is, but you have our products, then maybe you come in again and figure it out, or maybe you experiment more, and maybe you try some of these other producers. I mean, I say go try everything. Like, go out there, take a sip, and actually drink it. Don't just be like, oh, I'm not going to like that because it's not my favorite.
Right.
Or, oh, I'm not going to like it because I only like X, Y, and Z, which is fine to have preferences. But if you can truly enjoy something and experience something, as long as it's made properly and it's made ethically and it's made like a real product, then I think that there's benefits to everything right there.
That's why I've almost become, very much more open to drinking gold rum and mixing it, because there's a little bit of a different nuance to it over the with a clearer light. So
and it also depends on how many plates you use, or if you're using a column still or pot still, and not all pot stills are the same, and there's alembic styles, and there's all these different, again, the science behind it of the craft. Sorry, I got a little distracted there. I think there's one more sip left.
Yeah, so you go, all right, you are keeping up. In 4 sips or less, what do you see for the future of the rum industry?
Ooh, the future of the rum industry. I think that we need to, as a collective, we need to identify who we are as it. We need to kind of, as a culture, change of what it means, what rum means, and not just in people's eyes, but in our own eyes. I think that you have to acknowledge the history and the path that rum has taken over the years, through production, through through the fact that it was. I mean, I think there was like 80 distilleries of rum produced in Boston at one point in time, and then you have the overtaxation of it, which killed the scene and brought in rye whiskey, and rye whiskey got killed by Prohibition and made bourbon the thing, whatever the fad is. But you have to acknowledge where you come from, make peace with that, and understand that, like, yeah, there's troubled history and a lot of things that we have in life, but if you can acknowledge that and make amends and, you know, get away from the overcharacterization of disenfranchised, you know, communities or, you know, or people, and instead of stealing from that culture, is create a different culture of what you are as rum and what we are as rum. I think that is a huge hurdle that holds us back as a community. I think that, and I will go ahead and fire some shots. I think that Barbados should have their own, you know, I think that a certain distillery, I won't name their name, but I think a certain distillery needs to get off their high horse and get away from stop standing in the way for true Barbadians to have their own identity.
Right.
I mean, they are who they are, and that's great, and it should be. And if you want to step in because you like to send your stuff to your home country and back again and all this other stuff, then fine. But then don't benefit from the hard work of others. And especially if it means, you know, putting in stuff post-distillation. If that's what Barbadians want, or Batians, whatever, however the three ways you want to say it, if that's what they want, then let them do that and be real, you know? Like, you can still have a product that is relevant and not have to call yourself and stand in the way of you know, the people that are around you. Sorry, I get a little heated about stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I think overall, us as rum producers and rum enthusiasts, we have a responsibility to acknowledge history and continue on with what we want our legacy to be.
Right. And I think that's why, you know, I mentioned it last night. I think it's a little tough for rum here in the U.S. produced, because it is produced many different ways that are based on other locations.
For sure.
You can't even say really American rum. Well, I guess you could.
Yeah.
You could, right? Because it's made here in the U.S.
And it has a long history in America.
Right, so...
I mean, the first taxes were on alcohol.
Right. And
until the Prohibition, the taxation of other goods and services were a lot less. They didn't have income tax before that. And, I mean, there's many different things. I mean, alcohol has a long history in America, and the fact that America, I mean, you can't say that somebody was first and that the other people can't do it. That gatekeeps, especially now. If you want to say that it's produced a certain way, and that's fine, cool,
a standard, whatever.
Yeah, a standard, and I think there has to be a standard in American rums. I think that there should be some, you know, standard set up, which as there is.
So. All right, so that wasn't too bad. That wasn't too bad, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
You got the rapid fire, so now the part that comes up. So now that you've made it through the rapid fire, there, Tony, you now are an alum of the Drums and Rums podcast. There,
sweet.
So I said it's as we talked about, is this community of rummers, and as I call it, right? What did the survey say? Is rummers and drummers.
Rummers and drummers.
Rummers and drummers, and whichever you may fall in distinction. So thanks.
Let me take a page out of Eric's book.
Oh, okay. Look at this.
I mean, it is rum.
Look at this, gals. We're putting up this on Patreon.
Or guys.
Okay,
I mean,
so we don't want to. That's true. We don't want to leave anybody out. So maybe we'll put this on the Only Rums page that we have there. Only Rums.
Support the Patreon. I mean, you have to realize that Paul being an ambassador for what it is, and I'll talk to you guys if you can see my face. Paul's an ambassador and has. I mean, I really appreciate what you do as a person, on your professional life on both sides of it. Being an ambassador to rum, to what we have passion for, to have this, or drums and music, and bringing that to people, you're a community builder. Let me drink another sip.
Yes.
4 sips or less.
Thank you.
But if you are listening to this, like, subscribe, review.
Yep.
Subscribe, rate, and review, as the shirt says.
That's right.
Give him the benefit of a little help. If you enjoy what it is, then you should support and help him out as something as easy as a like. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, no, I appreciate it. No, thank you, Tony, and definitely thank for the hospitality. I know the hospitality is not going to end after we hit the record button. Looking forward to hospitality this evening.
Oh yeah,
whatever that may be. Hopefully, I do make it back to Florida.
Keep an eye on the Facebook and Instagram and YouTube.
Yeah, that's going to be. We may have to pre. No, so Tony, here's the shameless plug here.
Sure.
What do you want people to check out? Tell them where you can get your products. All of that stuff.
Okay. So. Outer Banks Distilling on Instagram. If you type in Kill Devil Rum, there's a company in Scotland that happened to produce Kill Devil Rum in Scotland. Got the Instagram tag before we were Instagram savvy, and so it goes to them. I don't think... they don't sell Kill Devil Rum here because it's trademarked. I think that Outer Banks Distilling on Facebook, there's a group of our fans that have created the Kill Devil Rum Locker. I think there's about 1,1400 to 1,700 fans that do that. We talk about our releases. We give heads up on different information that kind of go along the lines of that, and you'll be the first to know.
Okay, I appreciate it. So, yeah, check it out. Again, if you're here in the North Carolina area, so where can they get stuff here in North Carolina? So
in North Carolina, you can go to all of your ABC stores. The majority of ABC stores have us either in the local section, the North Carolina section, the rum section, preferably the rum section. If you can't get if your local ABC does not have it, you can request it. They work for the state, and the state works for you. Mm-hmm. We're also available on cellar.com, like the basement, cellar.com. Based out of DC, we're in Virginia, and majority of Virginia ABC stores in the rum section, and then limited in Florida.
Okay. Yeah, we can get you down here.
I know, right?
Yes. So, no, excellent. So, yeah, definitely check it out here. If you're vacationing, if you're going to the Outer Banks, I know a lot of people come up here during the summer to go vacationing or wherever. Come on down here.
Downtown Manio.
Meet everybody here. Tell them, we sent you. You stop in. It's great setup here if you're over there vacationing and it's a rainy day, come on over. If you're listening to this, you're obviously a rum enthusiast, or for the most part, right? And stop by and say hi. They give you the tour and learn a lot about this. And
for sure.
Support. I know I'm not local, but again, support the brands, the companies, the guests that we all have.
Try something new. Yeah.
Try something new. Try something new. Try this. And again, these are great stuff, right? And just step out a little bit. You'd be surprised, right? Don't be afraid to try something, or if you see something on the shelf there, rather than one of the other bigger brands. It doesn't hurt, right? So definitely, like Tony said, rate, review, subscribe. Give us the rating over there on podcast, on Apple Music, Apple Podcast. It does mean a lot, actually, because that's what people look at, and that's how people see it's an interesting podcast to listen to. Again, try to have an interesting story. Follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to YouTube. We'll be posting this video. Trying to get better and more on time on those. Facebook, all this other stuff there. But I really appreciate it, Tony. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to finally meet you in person.
Yeah, I know. It's like this weekend was a lot of meeting people that I've only met online, which is, it kind of sounds like a weird...
Yeah, what you're not supposed to do. Your parents tell you, don't meet strangers on the internet.
Hey, don't get in that guy's car that picked you up at the airport.
Yeah, and now that's all we do.
Right. So, no, I definitely appreciate it. So, check us out. Kill Devil Rum, Outer Banks Distilling. Come on down, try it out. Thanks all. This is Paul, where the back beats. Thanks all.